Hi everyone. Imagine there is a hidden shortcut that could change India's entire trade game. A secret tunnel that allows us to bypass Pakistan completely, reach Afghanistan directly, enter Central Asia, and even connect with Russia and Europe. That shortcut is called Chabahar Port. For India, it is not just a port, it is a golden key. But just when we thought we had unlocked the treasure, US stepped in and said, but why? Why does the US first give us waivers and then suddenly threaten sanctions? Why is this one single port being called India's golden key? Why does this small Iranian port have the power to shake geopolitics, trade, and even US arms industry? Why is Pakistan so nervous every time Chabahar is mentioned? Why is China quietly watching all this while sitting with its own port in Gwadar? If you want to know the full story of Chabahar Port, its history, its present, and the hidden reasons you will never see in the news, then I promise you watch this video till the end and you will never need to search for another one again. What you are about to hear is a thriller of geopolitics, trade, friendship, betrayal, and suspense. Chabahar is a small coastal city in the Iran's Sistan Balochistan province. For decades, it was sleepy, underdeveloped, far from Tehran's radar. But it had one killer advantage. It's Iran's only deep sea port with direct access to Indian Ocean. For decades, it remained a quiet fishing town, but for India, it suddenly became a lifeline. Why? Because Pakistan has always blocked India's land access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Chabahar became our backdoor, our secret tunnel into regions that Pakistan wanted us locked out from. But that is not it, guys. Officially, India reduced buying Iranian oil after US sanctions. But here is the hidden angle. With a long-term presence in Chabahar, India has a channel to negotiate side deals with Iran for oil and gas in rupees or barter, like infrastructure for oil. This gives India a backdoor to secure cheap energy even when sanctions are on. Also, India officially says Chabahar is for trade, but experts knows that the ports can easily become dual use. By controlling its terminals, warehouses, and logistics, India quietly gains a forward operating presence in the Gulf of Oman near the Strait of Hormuz. And that is the choke point where 30% of the world's oil passes. So even without calling it a naval base, India has eyes and ears in one of the world's most sensitive zones. Then we talk about Gwadar. But the hidden depth is China is building ports in Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Djibouti, all around India, called the String of Pearls. And if India controls Chabahar, it pokes a hole in China's necklace right where it matters the most, near the Strait of Hormuz, China's lifeline for oil. In a crisis, India can use Chabahar's location to monitor or even disrupt China's oil supply chain. That is why since the 1990s, India has dreamt of developing Chabahar. We helped Iran build the Shahid Beheshti terminal. The Shahid Beheshti terminal is the main part of Chabahar port, where all cargo comes in, gets unloaded, stored, and sent further. And even constructed the Zaranj-Dalaram highway inside Afghanistan so that goods could flow seamless from Indian Ocean into Afghan cities. The vision was very clear. Indian ships from Mumbai would dock at Chabahar, and from there, goods could make to Afghanistan and beyond without ever touching Pakistani soil. For India, this was nothing short of masterstroke. But then came the wall of geopolitics. From the mid 2000s, Iran's nuclear program is Iran's effort to develop nuclear technology officially for civilian purposes like electricity, but the world feared it could be used to make nuclear weapons. Put the country under heavy US sanctions. And India, which was simultaneously strengthening ties with Washington through the nuclear deal, found itself stuck. The nuclear deal was about India-US civil nuclear agreement signed in 2008. It allowed India to buy nuclear fuel and technology from the US and other countries despite not being a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Chabahar agreements existed on the paper but work slowed to a crawl. The dream was frozen in time. But everything changed in 2015 when Iran signed a nuclear deal, the JCPOA. Joint Comprehensive Plan of Actions to limit its nuclear program, like reducing uranium enrichment and allowing inspections. Sanctions were lifted, and suddenly the road ahead looked clear. India jumped back in with full enthusiasm. In 2016, Prime Minister Modi personally signed a trilateral agreement with Iran and Afghanistan. By 2017, India Ports Global Limited took operational control, and in 2018, the first consignments of wheat rolled into Afghanistan through Chabahar Port. For the first time, the dream was real. Chabahar was alive. But in 2018, when Trump came into power, Trump tore up the nuclear deal and sanctions came crashing back. Yet, here is where the story gets interesting. The US gave India a special waiver for Chabahar. Why? Because as I told you earlier, just 170 km away from Chabahar is Gwadar Port, run by China under its Belt and Road Initiative. And if US completely blocks India from Iran, it hands over the entire region to China. So by allowing India, America keeps China in check and prevents Gwadar from becoming the only big player. Also by allowing India to operate in Chabahar, the US ensures Iran does not tilt 100% towards China. And Iran is already in China's orbit. But if India invests in Chabahar, Iran has at least one foot in the non-China camp. And that suits America because a complete China-dominated Iran is America's nightmare. And by giving India a special exemption, the US keeps India indebted. Tomorrow, if Washington says, okay India, now we want you to align with us on XYZ issue, then India cannot just say no because it knows Chabahar exists thanks to US generosity. In diplomacy, this is called controlled freedom. But whatever the reasons were, for India, this was a miracle clause. Even under heavy sanctions, we could quietly keep building our gateway. And by 2024, India had invested over $120 million and finally signed a 10-year agreement to operate the port. The timing was just perfect. Chabahar now was not just about Afghanistan, it was about connecting India to the International North-South Transport Corridor, instc, a mega trade route that links Mumbai to Chabahar, then through Iran into Russia and Europe. This corridor could cut transport cost and time to Europe by almost half, and for India, it was also a direct counter to China's Gwadar Port. For once, India was on the verge of creating a parallel to China's Belt and Road dream. But then came the twist. In September 2025, the US announced that the waiver for Chabahar would end, and that any activity linked to the port could invite sanctions. This was a dagger in the heart of India's grand plan. Banks could now refuse transactions, insurers could back off, and Indian companies working there could face international blacklisting. A dream worth decades of effort suddenly looked like it might collapse. And here is the things get even more interesting. On the surface, US claims this is only about Iran's nuclear program and isolating Tehran, but the hidden layers of the story tell a very different tale. Deep down, Washington fears that the Chabahar is not just an Indian project. It is a potential axis of power linking India, Iran, Russia, and Central Asia in ways that could weaken US dominance. Just think of it. If Chabahar succeeds, India can trade directly with Russia, Iran, Central Asia, and Europe, bypassing Western control routes. Iran has massive oil and gas reserves. If India builds long-term economic plus port ties, Iran could become a major alternative supplier to India instead of Saudi, UAE, and other US-allied countries. And this would reduce US control over global oil trade and hurt the petrodollar system where oil is bought in the USD. Russia, which was isolated due to the sanctions, also gets a lifeline, and the dollar loses ground as more trade shifts to rupees, riyals, and rubles. And America's arms industry also takes a hit, because if India secures stable, independent trade routes, its dependence on US naval protection decreases. How? Well, think of it like this. Right now, India depends on the US Navy to keep the seas safe so its ships can move goods. Because of this dependence, India also buys weapons, ships, and defense services from US. It's like paying for both protection and tools to stay safe. But if India controls Chabahar Port and the INSCPC, it can move goods safely without relying on US naval protection. That means India won't need as many US weapons or support, which hits America's arms industry because its influence and sales goes down. There is also a port shadow war going on. While China already dominates the Indian Ocean with Gwadar, Hambantota, Djibouti, and Myanmar, India's only major overseas card was Chabahar. By pulling the plug, the US ensures that India never fully escapes US orbit. And one more thing, it's a little strange but true. Sometimes the US indirectly prefers Iran going deeper with China rather than with India. Why? Because if Iran is tied to China, US can frame it as part of the China threat narrative and justify its military build-up in Asia. But if Iran ties with India, it looks like a positive multipolar world story, which weakens America's good versus evil global narrative. And let's not forget Israel's shadow in this story. The US foreign policy is deeply tied to Israel's security interest, and Israel sees Iran and its ports, including the Chabahar, as potential gateways for weapons, trade, and alliances that threaten it. So part of the US pushback is directly aligned with Israeli pleasure. So when you connect the dots, you see the real picture. Chabahar is not just about India and Iran. It is about Russia's survival, China's competition, Israel's security, America's arms sales, and above all, the dollar's supremacy. The US strategy is psychological. First, give India the green light, let us invest heavily, and then pull it back, forcing us to constantly look over our shoulder, never fully committing, never fully independent. And that is why the Chabahar story is a thriller. It is not just a port, it is a battlefield of power, a choke point of trade, and a test of whether India can truly act as an independent pole in world politics. Now, with the waiver gone, the big question is, will India bow to pressure or double down and take the risk? Because one thing is very, very clear, ports are never just about ships. They are about power, control, and the future of geopolitics. So now if you liked this video, then please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to like, comment, and share. Your support helps me get recognition and also helps others learn and understand better.